Welcome friends, I am Rajesh Asudani here with yet another episode of Through Literary Lens. This time on, we have with us as usual Dr. Vinod Asudani, but we are going to listen him recite his poem, and thereafter we are going to take it up and discuss it and bring out its various aspects. So Vinodji, welcome to the show.
And Namaskar Rajeshji, thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my English poem.
And the title is also very intriguing, interesting title. Our listeners are eager to listen to you, and the title is Return from Lunacy, isn't it?
Yeah, Return from Lunacy.
Yeah.
So here the poem goes.
Yeah.
I walk through labyrinths of lunacy. I walk through labyrinths of lunacy with unsettled heart and unsettled mind. IQ high, memory sharp are at the roots, says psychology. IQ high, memory sharp are at the roots, says psychology.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, I asked not for them. Oh Lord, I asked not for them, why thou bestowed these gifts on me. Perhaps thou needed them not. Thou bask in sanity, vanity. Thou bask in sanity, vanity, unhaunted by the ghost of past, unperturbed by the perplexity of present, fearless of feverish future. I can forget past not. I can face present not. I can think of future not. Take back your gifts. I wish to return from lunacy. Take back your gifts. I wish to return from lunacy.
Wonderful, Vinodji. A very profound and a very elevated poem it is. Now we will discuss it threadbare, but before that, let me say a few words, and we will set the context for the discussion. This is return from lunacy. Lunacy traditionally is understood to be insanity. When a person goes mad, they are called lunatic. The word is derived from luna, which means moon, and the pull of moon, and so called. All of us know those not only myths, but it has some grain of truth as well. Now the poem is about the poet's endeavors to come back to sanity, to come back to sort of normalcy, we can call. Why? What has happened? And here the poet is talking to God. Oh Lord, he says, who asked you for these gifts? Okay. Now, lunacy, when we try to understand the very basic fabric of lunacy, we must keep in mind that when a lunatic rambles about here and there and all sorts of unconnected things, we call this as lunacy. But in literature, you understand lunacy in a particular way. If you have read King Lear, there is method in madness. Even in Hamlet, so Shakespeare is fond of depicting method in madness. And many a times we hear the comments of a so-called lunatic person. They make much larger sense than an ordinary person generally thinks of. So I believe, Vinodji, here the poet is talking of such a lunacy where the sensibility is heightened beyond the ordinary, and a person is contextualized in the wider framework of past, present and future. For example, when we switch on the TV and hear about some happenings, say in Rwanda, say in Israel or whatever, general reaction is that it's happening on the other side of the world, I am not concerned, or even what impact it would have on us. But a person who is keen, whose senses are refined, sees the world as a unit and thinks of any happening, each and every happening in the world as impacting every one of us.
He feels universal agony.
Universal
Wherever
agony.
it may be taking place.
Yeah.
If pain takes place millions of meters away, but he is still sensitive to that.
Yeah. And this is lunacy in the ordinary sense of the term. So, poet says, what is at the root of such lunacy? It is the high IQ and the sharp memory.
Yes, Rajesh, I would like to hear your comments on first essence of the poem.
Yeah.
I walk through labyrinths of lunacy with unsettled heart and unsettled mind. IQ high, memory sharp are at the roots, says psychology.
Yeah, these twin factors are definitely responsible for the heightened sensibility and widening of the context of a person, as is very much evident, because persons whose memory is sharp will remember each and every detail of many things, and he or she is apt at making the connections which lay people cannot. They cannot think of such connections. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक हिंदी शेर मैं आपको बताता हूँ, बड़ा फेमस है कि मगज को बाग में न जाने देना, नाहक एक परवाने का खून हो जाएगा.
जी जी, बहुत खूबसूरत.
इसके क्या माने हुए कि डोंट लेट दैट मॉथ गो इनटू द गार्डन, डोंट लेट दैट बी, मगज इज बी, डोंट लेट दैट हनी बी go into the garden, an innocent moth will be massacred unjustifiably. Now, how do you connect these things? Actually, the connections are not so tenuous. One should be able to think it through, but we are not.
And one who is gifted with high IQ is able to understand symbolically the significance of subterranean currents which escape the attention of ordinary people.
Yeah, here if the honeybee enters the garden, they will make the honey hive, they will make the bee hive, and the wax will be extracted from that. Wax will be used to create a lamp which will be lit, and the moth will be attracted and will be burnt alive. So these connections are not very tenuous, but thinking people, they make these connections,
and that is why the phrases I would like you to please throw some light. Unsettled heart and unsettled mind.
Because if you think in these terms, if you feel and think that the things are connected and one thing is having an impact on another things, then of course your mind cannot remain settled.
So both your faculties, right? Your thinking faculty is perturbed. Your emotional equilibrium is perturbed, unsettled heart and unsettled mind.
Because you will be thinking the things, what is the remedy, what you can do about it, as well as emotionally you will be unsettled. You will be impacted by all these things because your sensibility is heightened. So, and many people are of such a sensibility. We are aware of examples. Nietzsche, he was a very great philosopher.
A German philosopher of 19th century.
And what happened in the last 10 to 15 years of his life? Once he was walking on the road and he saw on the other side of the road that a horse was being flogged very badly. All of a sudden he crossed the road, he ran towards the horse and he stuck to it. He embraced the horse and requested the owner not to flog it.
So great empathy. If it is lunacy, then such lunacy is certainly welcome.
And that same Nietzsche was confined. His sister took care of him for last 10 to 12 years of his life. He was in the lunatic asylum. So Nietzsche was there. Then many more people.
Sartre was there.
Saadat Hasan Manto was in the asylum. Why? These were not mad people. They were great philosophers. They were great authors.
They were people with high IQ and sharp memory.
Perhaps more than required IQ, highly refined, cultivated people they were. But at the same time, their emotional sensitivity was also awakened. So emoto-rationally, they operated on a level which is beyond the reach of an average person. So they were dubbed as mad. And in his madness only Nietzsche wrote, "Thus spake Zarathustra." So you get profound insights by reading his works.
And he was the first person to declare God is dead.
God is dead. Now you come to the second
stage,
God.
yes.
Yeah.
O Lord, I asked not for them, why thou bestowed these gifts on me. Perhaps thou needed them not. Thou bask in sanity, ... vanity, unhaunted by the ghost of past, unperturbed by the perplexity of present, fearless of feverish future.
Yeah. Now let us try to understand this particular stanza. The poet is speaking to the God, O Lord. Now, either we take it God as various religions portray it in different roles, different aspects, or the spirituality posits God as being the ultimate force and benevolent force behind this world, governing this world. We take it to be hypothetical, naturally. Whether it really exists or not, we can't say. So let us, Vinodji, take it as a hypothesis that an omnipotent and omnibenevolent God.
Right, some force that seemingly governs this entire universe.
All-powerful force, and that omnibenevolent means that really cares for everybody, everything in the universe in a positive way.
So the poet seems to be in conversation with Lord.
And he says, Lord, I didn't ask for these gifts. What gifts? High IQ and the sharp memory, because they have led me to lunacy. Lunacy in the sense that I connect the things, I try to know why the things are so happening, and I feel emotionally that they are not right. I feel perturbed that something is wrong. You are not omnibenevolent. You are not caring for everybody's benefit. You are not being positive about all the people or the things in the world. Now, when I perceive these things, I want to set them right as well.
Perhaps thou needed not. Thou needed them not.
There is a concept called Trikaladarshi in Hinduism.
Seers who can look into the past, present and future.
And God is also considered to be omniscient.
Yes.
Who knows everything. So poet says, no, it's not the case. Perhaps if you know all these things, you should have contextualized the things in a better perspective. Your perspective should have been much more deeper and wider than ours. But it doesn't seem to be the case. And even if it is the case hypothetically, that your perspective is all embracing, but at least ours is not. Ours is not means the poet or the lunatic poet is much above the average humanity. His high IQ and refined sensibility, they are much sharper memory. They give him a much bigger, much better perspective, but still that perspective falls short of an omnibenevolent, omniscient God if it is in existence.
Thou bask in sanity, ... vanity.
These are the really haunting lines of the poem.
Unhaunted by the ghost of past, unperturbed by the perplexity of present, fearless of feverish future.
Yeah, but I am not so. I cannot, think about the future. What's that?
Yeah.
Right?
So the third stanza speaks it out more clearly.
Yeah.
I can forget past not.
Yes.
I can face present not. I can think of future not.
Yeah.
Take back your gifts.
Yes.
I wish to return from lunacy.
Yeah. Now the poet says, but I am not so. Perhaps you are unperturbed by the past and present and even future. You have such a broad perspective, such a deep perspective. You are perfect being, and you means God, hypothetical God. But I am not so. Even with my refined capabilities, my heightened sensibility, my sharp memory, I fall short of such a calm perspective. I cannot forget past. I can connect the things with the past, and present is unbearable. Future is unthinkable for me with these faculties intact. my memory, sharp memory intact, high IQ intact, emotional sensibility intact, the things are becoming unbearable for me. Now, only possibility remains that I forego, I give back all these faculties and go back to the innocence, maybe of animalish innocence, because animals, they are happy, they live in the state of nature, or perhaps that godly omnibenevolence. So perhaps it is one and the same thing. Godly omnibenevolence, omnipotence, omniscience, and animalish oneness with nature. But this state of humanity, where we have our faculties of thinking and feeling, we can feel and think for the universe, for the earth, for ourselves, for our fellow sentient animals also. It appears by all counts that the picture is far from perfect. Either one should revert to the animalish naturalness, or
Naturalism, as some of the thinkers call it.
Rousseau said
Rousseau
return
says,
to nature,
sure.
or then as Osho equates godliness with naturalness. He says both are one and the same thing. But we are caught here. We are caught where we are. We have our highly developed senses of fairness, of emotional this thing, and with all these senses we think and we feel that the things are far from not only far from perfect, the things are not even satisfactory,
Not even bearable.
not even bearable. And you need not go further. If you take at the newspaper of any country on any day, you will find many such things which are beyond the bounds of bearing. They are unbearable. As Bertrand Russell said, one visit to the children's ward is more than enough to destroy the faith in the God. So this is about cosmic thing. But
And perhaps even the protagonists of
Yeah.
Brother
Karamazov
seems to be perturbed. His emotions, his intellect seem to be perturbed. He is really disgusted kind of world that he finds around, and he says that okay, in the end perhaps there is a heaven, perhaps everything will turn
religion
out to be
consoles that at the end there is heaven, sinners and sin will be rejoined, reunited in unison. He says, okay, if all that is, I take it to be true. First of all, I don't know whether it is true or not. But religion says knowledge is not required. You believe. Okay, he says, I believe that at the end everything will be set right. But now, for years and years and centuries together, such injustices, such cruelty, they are allowed to go on. I don't want this world. I return the ticket for this world. And in your line also, Vinodji, you
Yes.
bring that thing.
Yes,
The return.
return from lunacy.
Return
from
from
lunacy.
lunacy.
Perhaps poet is trying to usher in the era which is based upon humanity, human concerns. Perhaps it touches upon existentialism as well, where meaning appears to be central metaphor.
Yes.
Out of meaninglessness, if we can travel to meaning, if out of insanity we can come to sanity, perhaps that would be the right thing. So satirically, ironically,
Yeah.
poems suggest that sanity has to be discovered. But how?
God is basking in sanity, vanity. Sanity and vanity, poet has put them on equal
Juxtaposed.
footing. Godly sanity is equivalent to vanity. Nobody dares call God as vain or with vanity, but poet does. And poet in a way destroys the whole fabric of so-called godly religions.
So in a lighter vein, Rajesh, I would
Yeah.
like to add,
Yeah.
perhaps poet is lunatic. He can be forgiven
Yeah.
for saying God as suffering from vanity.
But vanity and godly sanity, by equating the two, the poet has, how beautifully the poet has satirized. If you come to think of it, I think your mind and heart will be unsettled. The God is basking in sanity, vanity. What kind of God is this? What kind of perfection is this? What kind of universal perfection is this? I believe it is not. I believe it is not. And poet is, maybe in a way, poet is communicating that instead of relying on godly cosmic moral, so-called cosmic morality, godly morality or godly perfection, or relying on the fictional finalism of godly redemption, it is better to rely on fellow humanity. It is better to bond with humanity and create a more bearable world.
And it brings in the theme, another existential theme of responsibility.
Yeah.
We cannot forget the past.
Yeah.
We have to face present.
Yeah.
And we have to be prepared to face future as well. So this sense of accountability is essential if humanity has to anchor itself in the realms of reality.
Yeah, anything has to be contextualized in the framework of totality. When we speak about climate change, when we speak about intergenerational equity, we are thinking about the present and the future, and at the same time we have inherited our past. So even the smallest
Entire concept of sustainable development
Yeah.
becomes reality only when you take into consideration our past mistakes,
Yeah.
and if you are ready to rectify right now so that we can leave a better future for the posterity.
Yeah, I mean, Vinod ji, some days ago we had discussed Kamleshwar's Kitne Pakistan.
Oh yes.
If you come to think of that, that is a novel about partition of India into Pakistan, India and Pakistan. But how beautifully there Kamleshwar has brought in the past, present, and maybe future. So that contextualization of the things, perhaps I venture to say that with the increasing technology, with the increasing interconnectivity, we should have been better at contextualizing the things holistically, but we are poorer.
We should have shown better human concerns.
Yeah.
There should have been more equality. There should have been more social justice. So the undercurrent of the poem indicates that these are the things they are lacking. And that is why poet who is universe in himself suffers from lunacy. When the social justice is calamity, when equality is calamity, when liberty is a calamity, then perhaps there is every ground for the poet to turn lunatic.
Yeah, and as they say कि मैं अपने आप से घबरा गया हूँ, मुझे ए जिंदगी दीवाना कर दे.
वाह वाह.
तो पोएट दीवाना हो गया, पोएट lunatic हो गया, and poet wants to return from such lunacy because this lunacy heightens the sensibility of the poet, heightens the rationality of the poet. But unfortunately, the poet is confounded by the so-called godly perfection.
Rajesh, if you allow me, I am reminded of my few lines of my poetry.
जी.
बाहर जाने का मन नहीं है, घर के आगे आंगन नहीं है.
वाह.
बाहर जाने का मन नहीं है, घर के आगे आंगन नहीं है. मेरी खुद से ही अनबन है, दूजी कोई सौतन नहीं है.
कोई सौतन
मेरी खुद से ही अनबन है, दूजी कोई सौतन नहीं है. So when poet is at war with himself, with unsettled heart and unsettled mind, perhaps he is in lunacy. He walks through the labyrinths of lunacy.
And I would give one interesting example before concluding, that when a poet lunatic at the height of his sensibility and rationality tries to bring about any change in the society, in the world, at the personal as well as systemic level, perhaps he is confounded by the rigidity of the religion, because poet has blamed, he has spoken to the Lord, isn't it, in this poem?
Yes.
So many other hurdles are there, I believe, but religion or so-called spirituality is also one of the great hurdles. And I am reminded of countless examples. When anesthesia was first discovered, Vinodji, one of the prominent uses of anesthesia is in childbirth.
Yes.
Isn't it? When a woman delivers, she is in great pain. Now, many religionists opposed it on the ground that it is written in the Bible about the woman that you will bring forth children in pain.
Exactly.
So if you can take pain away by anesthesia, you are interfering with the work of God. This is absurd, totally
And there are
absurd.
many examples why Galileo was put behind the bars.
Yeah.
Why Copernicus, when Nicus was charged with the, destroying the faith or a criminal, he was charged with crimes basically. And even Newton.
So because basically their sayings, their discoveries went against the tenets of religion.
And therefore they were considered to be lunatics in their own contemporary times.
Now here one can argue that you cannot blame a particular religion for, you cannot say the Lord is doing that, but unfortunately everything in religion is done in the name of God.
Exactly.
So we cannot really distinguish so-called pure God from the organized religion, and therefore many atrocities have taken place. I am concentrating on this because in this poem the lunatic poet is confronting Lord and he is satirizing Lord. He is taking him to account that, okay, if it is like that, you are basking in your sanity and vanity and you did not need the heightened sensibility and rationality, please take them away from me also. Isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So really, Rajesh, I am grateful to you for explaining this, perhaps one of my complex poems to the listeners. Really, and we'll be back again
Yes.
in this show with something
Yet
and
another
another
piece of work,
Yes.
literature. Thank you.
Thank you very much.